We're 4 friends who live across the globe
and share a love of Bon Appétit's YouTube channel.
So we came together to bring you our thoughts on what BA serves up.
And try our hands at recreating their dishes.
Welcome to Bon Appétit!
Hi, I'm Amanda.
Hey, it's Justine.
Hi, it's LJ.
And it's me, Meg.
And welcome back to another episode of Lockdown Quarantine Distraction Bon Appétit. We've just had a really long debrief between ourselves about how crazy life is right now. I'm sure everyone is feeling the same thing out there, no matter where you're listening in the world, pretty much. But yeah, we're still here. We're still, we're very used to recording remotely. So we are going to continue to do so as long as we stay sane, which in this climate, who knows how long that's going to be.
Are we still sane? I'm not sure that I'm still sane.
Were we ever?
No.
I feel like watching Bon Appetit videos is one of the things that does make me feel like life is a little bit normal. It does, it's a little bit of light relief in my day. So it's good to have this to bring that normality back and forget about life for a bit.
And I think it's that way for a lot of people. It's a little bit of escapist enjoyment. So hopefully we can provide the same by recapping Bon Appetit.
Yeah, that's the idea. So what have you guys been able to get your hands on to make anything of interest in our little what have we been up to section?
I did make dinner for my family the other night. It was not anything Bon Appetit. It was all from like cans and boxes and stuff. But I made pasta with Alfredo sauce. Ooh. But I did like zhuzh up the Alfredo sauce a little bit. I added pasta water and
liquid gold.
Yeah, salted pasta water. I added some extra like garlic and stuff, and then I made green beans, again, from the can, but, like, I added some, like, salt and garlic and, some seasoning and stuff like that. Yeah. And fruit cocktail. I did not do anything extra to that. We just had a can that was going to go bad, so I opened it up and said, here's your fruit. We're starting to alternate who's making dinner each night to try to, mix it up a little bit. And everyone was, like, making fun of, like, Jeremy, my husband, and I were talking, and he was like, oh, man, you're in charge of dinner. Do they have backup plans?
Oh, boy.
You're good at dinner now, Amanda. You can make dinner. You're using garlic. What more does he want?
I don't know. But, like, my mom really liked it, and my sister really liked it. My sister Addie, my sister Faith went, I'm going to bed. So, but she ate my green beans the next day, and she actually took my leftover green beans and added some more and, like, did her own thing for when she made dinner.
Well, It's like any skill. The more you do it, the better you get.
Exactly.
Before the apocalypse, I made... you guys recapped Andy's video. What was it called? The brothy pasta with chickpeas.
Pastry chickpea.
Yeah. I made that, and Ravi said it was the best thing I have ever made.
Oh, high praise.
Yeah. So lately, with getting groceries is hard.
It is.
But I have been able to get a couple things to BA. I made basically roasted sweet potatoes with miso tahini sauce and Claire's roasted veg with nutritional yeast, because those are super easy. Last night I made something with a couple substitutions on, basically it's crispy tofu with coconut quinoa and broccolini, but I used jasmine rice because that's what I had, and I didn't have any limes, and I had regular broccoli instead, but it's really good because you just make this like Thai peanut sauce, and the quinoa or rice has coconut oil and peanuts and coconut chips. So it's just very different from what I've been eating lately. It was hard to actually get a hand on some tofu. I haven't seen tempeh in a month, and like every other fake meat is gone. So I'm struggling over here.
I've got half a package of smoked tofu in my fridge that I'm like, what can I use it for? And I wish I could just like give it to you. But yeah,
Ship it to LA.
A lot of vegans in LA. All the vegan stuff went away.
Oh no.
I made something vegan, you'll be pleased to know. Chris Morocco's creamy-ish of mushroom soup. Because I saw it on the Healthy-ish Instagram, and it was like their recipe of the week or whatever they do over there. And I love mushroom soup. It is absolutely delicious. And given the fact that ingredients are hard to come by, I looked at the ingredients list and realised that the only thing I really needed to get that I didn't already have was mushrooms. So luckily I got the needed amount of mushrooms. It gets its creaminess from cashews, like zhuzhed up, which I think is quite a common way to veganize a soup. Using nuts, and it also has like miso in there, which I have a big jar of white miso in the fridge, so use that. And yeah, it's just like mushrooms and garlic and onion, and you kind of take some of the liquid to blend your cashew nuts to then add back in so that it's nice and creamy, and then you make like a garlic oil to go on the top, and it was absolutely delicious. It was really nice.
I saw that too. Yeah, it looks good.
What kind of mushrooms did you use?
It says in the recipe to, it just says mixed mushrooms, such as ... and it suggests like crimini, shiitake, oyster, maitake. I don't know if I've said that right. But I could only get whatever they had at my local supermarket. So I went for a combo of oyster mushrooms, chestnut mushrooms. I don't know if you call them something different in the States. And then shiitake as well. And it was really nice. I love mushrooms so much, and it was so good.
I love mushrooms too. That sounds delicious. I was able to make surprisingly quite a few Bon Appetit recipes in the last 2 weeks with stuff I just happened to have on hand, but my pantry and my fridge and my freezer are really depleted now. So for reals, I think this is the last episode where I will have Bon Appetit recipes for a while. But I made the basically baking sour cream and onion biscuits, which LJ also made and did the story for.
Yeah,
really good.
They're so good, aren't they? Really delicious.
Yeah, I would absolutely make them again. And from our Christmas cookie episode, I had half of my cookie dough frozen since Christmas. So I unfroze that dough and had lovely little cookies. And I put lemon curd in the middle this time instead of the blackcurrant jam. So that was really tasty. There was already lemon peel in the dough, so I thought it would be a nice sort of compliment, and I think it turned out really well. And then I also made savory palmiers with Parmesan and black pepper. So I think palmier means palm leaf in French. It's these little puff pastry bites, I guess. They just look like little elephant ears, sort of. So I had some frozen puff pastry dough, and I thought I might as well make these. It was the Claire recipe.
Yum.
And I've been continuing the quarantine cocktail challenge.
I love quarantine cocktail challenge. This is my favorite thing about Meg being in quarantine. She's got time to make drinks.
It's been going well. I did Priya's spiked shikanji and Sola's old fashioned, both excellent. But I don't know if I can make any of the other ones going forward now. Maybe Gabby's feel good drink, the penicillin. I think I might have the ingredients for that, but yeah, we'll see.
That's amazing. So let's get cracking on our serving of videos for this episode. So on the menu for today's episode, we have Molly makes roast chicken and potatoes from the test kitchen. Molly and Adam make matzo ball soup from the test kitchen. The Bon Appetit test kitchen is cooking at home, their intro video into home-produced Bon Appetit videos. Every way to make pizza, 32 methods. Brad makes charred tomato toast, it's alive. Pro chefs make their favourite coffee, test kitchen talks at home. Pastry chefs attempt to make gourmet Andes. Pastry chefs attempt to make gourmet Andes mince. Gourmet makes with a twist. Binging with Babish tries to keep up with a professional chef, back-to-back chef, again with a twist. And Claire makes sourdough crepe Suzette. It's alive with another motherfucking twist because it's been April Fool's Day. So let's, before we get to that final trio of videos, start with the ones from a while back. So Molly makes roast chicken and potatoes.
Hey guys, guess what?
What?
Chicken butt?
Damn it, Meg!
I fell for it because I wrote that down and I fell for it. Oh my God.
I fell for it too. I was like, Does Justine have insider information?
I can't believe I fell for that. That is insane. Especially because the chicken butt is my favourite bit. The Pope's nose is the bit that I always go for on a chicken. And not enough people know about it, which is great for me because it means I always end up getting it. But now I'm worried that they've spread the word to too many people because now it's going to be a fight on my hands.
Maybe people will still go for the oysters. I like the Pope's nose the best, too.
Pope's nose is so good.
Oh my god, like literally my second note is LJ would make this.
I really, really would love to, but I'm just like, will I ever be able to get gochujang again? That's the bit I'm worried about.
I have gochujang, but I don't think I can get a whole chicken at the moment.
Oh, it's so frustrating because this looks amazing. I really do want to try this. It looks so delicious, and I love how all the veg like gets nestled in with the chicken and have all the chickeny juices, and it's just delicious. I think this is right up my street.
I thought this was a good recipe video too. It looks delicious. It looks relatively easy. It takes a while to cook, but it's pretty hands-off. Beautiful color. I loved when she called it sunset chicken. I thought that was really cute. I think it was a good video too. When she was about to carve the chicken, I thought to myself, oh no, I don't want to see someone carving a whole chicken again. And then they cut to the carved chicken and I thought, yay, thanks for sparing us something we've seen a million times.
I really enjoyed Molly's tutorial on trussing, which is literally just tying the legs together. Because normally, whenever I've been like, I see in instructions to truss a chicken, I'm always like, oh my God, that's going to be really complicated. And I have to like find a YouTube video, probably Gordon Ramsay doing it. And it's like goes from the front to the back. And then I saw Molly's tutorial and I was like, oh, I'm doing that from now on. Like, what the hell was I thinking? Trying to go from front to back and getting the wings pinned down. Like, who cares about that? Just move the legs up and tie them. Much easier.
There was one time in this video Molly used an abbreviation, as she does, but I had to like rewind it because I had no idea what she was talking about, and it was for schmaltzy peas.
Oh, the potatoes.
Oh. I was like, there's no peas in this.
That took me a second too.
The confusing thing with that also is if you had the closed captioning on, because like I was watching it on my laptop, they spelled it Peas. And I was like, wait.
They haven't got their Molly filter on.
Add peas somewhere?
Molly.
And I was,
No.
Yeah, there's like a
potatoes.
whole like divide of like being cute and like doing that sort of thing, but then also like being informative and making sure people don't get lost. And especially, there's like a hearing disability or other things like that.
Yeah.
Especially when you're making an instructional video, like a recipe video. I do think sometimes Molly fails to communicate as clearly as she could because of the cutesy abbreviations. But it is pretty rare that you don't know what she's talking about. But again, this is one example where you do a double take and you have to ask yourself what, and you might have to rewind. So yeah. I think that Carla is cutesy as well, but she tends to reserve the cutesiness for non-essential instructions.
Yeah, Carla is so informative.
Yep.
Yes, I think you're right. It needs to be. There has to be a point at which you can't lose people in terms of what you're trying to explain. I love the idea of this dish, like all the different flavors, like the honey and the lime and the scallions and the gochujang. It's just like a very different way of roasting a chicken that I wouldn't have otherwise have thought of without this kind of inspiration. Because normally, I guess, with a chicken, I just go for quite traditional, like lemon or some herbs, or I don't know, if I'm feeling a little bit fancy, I'll rub the skin with like paprika or some kind of like spice. But I would never think to go Asian with a roast chicken, which is stupid because I would make chicken in another Asian dish, just like not a roasted one.
Also, take a drink every time Molly says schmaltzy. Actually, don't. You'll be drunk by the end of the episode.
I love schmaltz. Have you guys ever made your own schmaltz? I've made it before for a recipe, a Nigella recipe called schmaltzy chicken, where you basically cut off the chicken fat, so yield some chicken fat from the chicken, and then render that down, so melt it in a pan, and use that to baste the chicken as you're roasting it, and it is juicy chicken. So good.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've made a whole chicken.
Well, even Carla said on her live stream this week that she can't find any chicken in stores, so she's been buying duck. Could you do this recipe with a duck?
I would think so.
Yeah, I think the flavors would go really well with a duck because Asian flavors, you get like Chinese cuisine uses a lot of duck.
I think so too.
I think you could also do it differently, but with pieces of a chicken rather than a whole one. So if you couldn't get hold of a whole chicken, you could maybe adapt it to be able to do it with just like some chicken legs or thighs or something like that. It would obviously, you'd need less roasting time, but I don't see a reason why you couldn't do that.
I think that Sola, as seen in this video, might be taking over the old Chris role of being the very critical yet very informative person in the test kitchen, because when she tries Molly's chicken, she says it's like that really bad barbecue sauce. But then I think she realized how...
Casey masterpiece.
I think she realized how critical that sounded, though, and really backpedaled and said, but this is like that, all grown up.
But this is the good version,
the good version.
Oh,
I was surprised that Molly did not know what Casey masterpiece was.
Me too. It's a pretty common brand.
Molly's so bougie.
Yeah.
Yeah, she
That's
eats
true.
like caviar and ostrich egg. She doesn't know anything
Like
about
every day.
everyday brands. Okay, next we got Molly again. This time she's with Adam making matzo ball soup.
Okay, so I have to admit that I've really come around to Adam. I'm really glad that we got this video to talk about because the last time we had an Adam video to discuss on the podcast, I wasn't on that episode. And I feel like he's really redeemed himself. And I know that a lot of people say that his persona on the podcast is what especially drive them nuts. But I actually really like him as the host of the Foodcast. I think he's a very engaging host. I think he guides the conversation well. And in the videos, I think that he's making a concerted effort to be less of a know-it-all. You see him asking questions. You see him deferring to Molly. He says things like, correct me if I'm wrong, but then he goes ahead and says the thing anyway. But I honestly think that he's improving, and intentionally so. If he's not, I think that's okay too, because I think you said on a previous episode, LJ, that he knows he's the heel, and sometimes you kind of need that type of character.
Yeah.
The heel character.
I think you do, although I have to say, like, my least favourite Adam is when he acts like a know-it-all, because I'm like, he's not a professional chef. Like,
no.
You have a very, very specific area of expertise, which you're very good at, which is editing a magazine. Let them do their thing. So when he, like, stops them and is like, hang on a minute, like, that was 3 teaspoons, and it's like, no, she's using half teaspoon, so it's definitely not. She's put half teaspoons in, and I just think he needs to, like, I don't know, stay in his lane a bit more. And I think you're right. I think he is improving, but there are those moments where it still, like, bleeds out, and I'm like, dude, rein it back in.
Although I do think, to be fair with Molly, she might just go ahead and double the salt in recipe without you noticing anyway.
Yeah.
True.
But Adam, he wore a full apron this time. He's changed.
Yeah.
The vibe I got from this video was that Adam was a kid helping out his mom in the kitchen. Like, is this the way to do it?
Yeah, I made a note that I liked that in general he seems to be listening to her more. Like, he's being a more active listener, and instead of just being like, well, this is what I would do. Like, I don't know if he got some feedback. I mean, obviously he listened to us and got our feedback. But
Yeah.
Justine, your face. You know, I do wonder if maybe one of the video producers was like, hey, you do need to listen to her more, instead of like, yes, you're the boss, but you're not the expert on this.
We know they read the YouTube comments.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Adam especially, they talk about feedback quite often on the podcast,
which
so
I
he's
think is
definitely
good.
attuned to that. Yeah,
I think that's good, and that's one of the things that I like about him. And that's why I'm like 100% know that he's aware of what people think of him. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's tried to kind of adjust his personality, I guess, based off of that. But yeah, he doesn't irritate. I actually don't get irritated with him as much on the Foodcast as I do in the videos. I think he's fine on the Foodcast. I love this recipe. I really love matzo ball soup. My mum used to make this when I was a kid. So it really gave me those vibes of a kid helping its parent because of that as well. So I had that association with it. And yeah, it did make me think, God, I haven't had matzo ball soup in such a long time. So maybe it's time to kind of dig out this recipe and give it a go. But it looked very similar to how my mum makes it, to be honest. Like my mum does the whole poaching her balls in the soup thing. She also adds parsnips to stock, which I also like doing because it gives it a bit of sweetness. So there were lots of little things that they were doing that I was like, oh yeah, my mum does that. So yeah, it's good. Maxine, Adam's mum, is a friggin' genius. Matzo ball fried patties. Oh my God, that sounds amazing. So good.
That looked so good. We get more schmaltz in this video.
Yeah.
Because schmaltz is the new beans. I'm calling it now.
You heard it here first.
I did think the broth making section of this video was a bit redundant. I was like, didn't we just see this like 12 times?
Right.
I mean, I love a broth, so, more broth. Keep making broth. It's good for you.
Although I did really like the part with the matzo balls, especially when they had the underdone one. It was just so clear what an underdone one versus a done one was.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that because I've never made this dish before, and I think that would be really helpful to a viewer.
Yes.
I don't know. It's just like when they started with the broth, I just like checked out. Like, I feel like I stopped watching and then like...
You're like, oh, add the onions with the skins, you say.
Haven't heard that before. But then I was like, oh, wait, I have to check back in now because they're doing something new. Where was I? So yeah, that's what it was, the viewing.
You've just described me through every way to make a video.
Oh, yeah, I can't even watch those. We'll get to that.
Oh, that's definitely how I felt about this pizza one,
I've never had matzo ball soup, obviously.
Obviously.
Since I'm not into broth.
Oh, right, because you hate soup.
Because you hate soup.
Yeah.
Not a religious thing.
It's against Amanda's religion.
Not a religious thing. Well, that was part of, like, can you eat matzo balls? Like, is that a thing you can just eat that not in soup?
I've never had them not in soup, but I guess...
I mean, I think you have to boil it or poach it in some way.
You have to
I don't know
cook
how
the
else you
dough.
would want to have it.
Oh my God, I just remembered there was this guy who had a crush on me in it's probably college or right after college, and he made me matzo ball soup as a sign of his affection. I was not into him. But I ate the soup.
Matzo ball soup is like one of the ultimate comfort foods. Like, it really does just taste like a big hug. I love it so much. So next we have our introduction from the Bon Appetit test kitchen to their new setup, which is they're obviously all in lockdown. They're all isolating at home. So this is our introduction video to what that's going to be like. So it was called Bon Appetit Test Kitchen is Cooking at Home.
I really liked this video. Not to be too cheesy, but I felt like it was a real morale booster for me.
Yeah.
It was kind of like, test kitchen chefs, they're just like us.
Yes.
I think it was really smart of them to give us this content when they did. As they've been saying on a lot of their channels, they have a lot of pre-recorded videos. But I think it was smart to adjust with the times, to give us something timely. And I'm guessing to release these videos they're filming at home much faster than they do their other recorded stuff. Because let's imagine they're recording stuff at home and then they wait 2 months to release that.
Right.
Who knows what 2 months from now is going to look like. And also, if we're on the other side of this thing, no one's going to want to watch quarantine videos 2 months from now. So I thought it was really smart to give us fast content, relevant content, and relatable content. I really liked seeing everyone's home kitchen setups.
Yeah, I loved seeing that kind of glimpse into their home lives, or it wasn't always home as well. It was just where they are spending quarantine, because obviously some of them aren't at home.
Oh my God, Delaney at his parents' house is just like, of course.
So cute.
He's such a bachelor, you know.
I loved seeing people's kids and their pets and their parents, like Priya's parents, coming in like all awkward, like, hello.
Of course, Priya's parents.
And that her mom won't let her cook. I was just like, of course she won't.
I think Molly definitely had the best setup. Like, she was on vacation
absolutely.
in Joshua Tree, and she was like, we're just gonna stay here. And I was like, amazing. Yeah, definitely.
First of all, my thought with that is, How much money are you spending?
That's very expensive.
Yep. Yeah, if that's like an Airbnb or something, can you imagine?
Yeah. And still paying rent of where you're back home,
Wherever.
actual place.
Back home in New York, yeah.
I mean, if you can afford
Yeah.
it, do it. That's what I say. Like, spend quarantine in the desert. Why not?
Yeah, Joshua Tree looks beautiful, and her Instagram stories have been lit.
They look
Everything
great.
looks gorgeous in Joshua Tree.
Yeah, it does. It does. It made me kind of weirdly emotional. Like, when they were talking about how this it's like the shining light in their day and how they're problem solvers and these are just new problems to solve and we're all working together. And I was just like, oh my God, you guys. Like, it was just so comforting to know that they're going to keep producing the show and the show is going to go on. I don't know. I just really loved this video. It just really made me happy. And I loved seeing almost the kind of little glimpse into the behind the scenes nuts and bolts of how they're producing, like seeing the setup with the crew are all on Skype and like they're like directing via Skype. It was well, actually I think it's probably Zoom, to be honest.
It's Zoom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Skype is creaking at the seams, but let's not go there. So yeah, I loved
I like Sola's grim attitude. I'm like, not sure how I'm gonna align. Or she's just like, it's really hard to do this stuff that I want to do, and I'm like, I know, me too. It's really hard.
Yeah. I feel like Brad has cracked already.
Yeah.
He names his camera. He's just all over the place.
I made a note. I was like, Brad is just always Brad. Like, I really kind of appreciate, like, Brad doesn't necessarily have a camera persona or like an in the kitchen persona. Like, that's just Brad. That's just who he is.
I can't wait to see when it is like a few weeks along, because they are like, okay, I'm making meal plans, but then also I'm noting the endless dishes, and I like that aspect of it when they're like, oh, we actually have to wash our own dishes, so we get to see what this meal makes and what it's like for people at home to actually go through the whole entire process. And I'm like, yep.
I think they do try to bear that in mind normally, because they do say that they are always thinking about they develop recipes for the home chef, which is why they don't call for too many ingredients at any one time. They don't they're really quite strict on what they'll call for and how complicated a recipe would be.
They won't get special equipment. But now they're like
exactly.
2 bowls.
But I think this adds like an extra layer of realism to that they won't have considered before, which is the like practicalities of you've asked for all of this equipment and now someone has to wash it up.
I think it was Sola was saying that it was especially hard because she only had one pie pan, where normally at the test kitchen she'd have multiple tests going at the same time. So I think that'd be really difficult for recipe development, where you just have to wait for an entire pie to be done to start the next iteration. That sounds really challenging.
Yeah.
I do feel like it was partly scripted, partly improv. I think the end was a little bit scripted by the producers being like, okay, we got to end this positively. So Chris, say there's good things going on.
Yeah.
But make sure your kid does not have that second banana.
Those were the moments I think I liked the most, were like the little human moments where it was like calling to like talking to the kids or the dogs or like husbands or whatever, things like that, where, I mean, we deal with that all the time. How many times has Justine had to cut out like my cat climbing on me or something? Like, those are things that pop up, and it just makes them seem even more relatable.
Yeah. Okay, so everyone's favorite series, Every Way to Cook a Pizza.
Since I know everyone else is going to be negative about this one, I once again did not mind this as much. But I do think it was way too long.
Yeah, I didn't mind it. I just get bored.
LJ's making a face.
I mean, I guess I should be grateful that these have to be going on pause for a bit, right? Like, there's no way Amiel is making these at home.
There's finding the bright side. I feel like this one was doubly cruel because it was a Saturday video. We thought that we had one fewer video to recap, and then it was like, just kidding, here's a Saturday video, and it's your least favorite series.
Yeah, but it's one we knew that was coming because they teased it.
true, for sure.
I just think this series would be so much better if it was testing gadgets that claim to cook the food stuff in question, rather than just doing random methods that we know are not going to work. So, like, the bits that I genuinely found semi-interesting in this video were anything where it was, like, a gadget that was designed to cook pizza, and like what the difference is between them. So like there was that little one that sat on the stovetop that sort of had the spinny thing, and there was a one that went under the, I mean, I can't remember what they're all called, but one that kind of span like a flying saucer underneath the little
Teenage
bowl.
Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah. The that was,
oh my God,
that was
so great
revelation, because I was like, what? Someone has developed a Turtles pizza cooker. I had
they
no
had
idea.
everything in the
But
80s, man.
So
yeah, I would have killed for that as a kid.
I would have killed for that. But also how amazing to see, like, that was like, I was genuinely interested in the results of that one, because it was like, oh my God, there's a Turtles pizza machine. And it was so disappointing. And I'm like, that is interesting news, because as a consumer, I'm like, I'm not going to go out and buy that now, but I am going to go out and buy like the Breville pizza spinner or whatever it's called.
Yeah, the Turtles was like bad in a very interesting way. Like, how did it do that? Like,
I really appreciated Amiel's dedication with the Raphael costume and slicing the pizza with the size. That was amazing.
That was really funny.
But no, I totally agree, LJ. I think that this series should be gadgets made to cook this type of food. The pizza cone was really interesting too. Or going back to previous episodes, who knew there were so many different microwave gadgets for cooking bacon?
Yeah.
I think that would be the way to revive this series. And also, in this video, every single time he put it in some form of actual pizza oven, the pizza turned out relatively well. And it was just kind of like, you don't say.
Yeah,
no one is surprised.
All looks the same at the end, and I'm just like, I don't know the differences. You're saying there's a difference. I don't know. It's still pizza. I'd eat it. Like,
yeah.
I mean, it was just obvious, like if you aren't going to put it under something that cooks the bottom at a high heat and the top so that the cheese gets nice and melty and blistered, then it's not going to be as good a pizza. Like, and it's just like, you can tell that from looking at whatever the heat source is that you're going to be putting it on. Like, I didn't need you to go and waste all that pizza.
This one felt particularly unnecessary after we had an entire series about making the perfect pizza.
Yes, exactly that as well. Also, undercarriage is not a good word. He kept saying, look at the undercarriage, and I was like, no.
Undercarriage instantly makes me think of genitals. I don't know why.
Look at the testicles of this pizza.
Look at the vagina of this pizza. It's really, really firm.
Yes. Watching this video, like I said, I definitely liked it more than you guys did. Though I did start to get bored once it started going like outside and it was just like burning pizza on the fire and stuff. But this, most of all, really made me miss my local pizza place that I like in Columbus.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I miss Dewey's so much. Like, it made me so sad.
Well, I feel like, I'm not sure if they changed it or if it was always written like that. I feel like the copy at the beginning of the episode was specifically like, so you can recreate your favorite, takeout pizza at home,
Oh, yeah.
I listened a couple times and I definitely think it was an edit in of the specifically equipment at home, because it sounded one way and then like that little bit sounded a little different. I don't know, conspiracy theory, but I agree with you.
It just seemed to me, does he usually say that? I'm like, I don't know.
He might have flips it out.
I mean, pizza is the one thing that you usually eat elsewhere, though, right? As opposed to like burgers, which I think people are more likely to make at home than pizza, but who knows?
Yeah.
It's quite possible they redid the intro.
One of the things that annoyed me again about this was that he wasn't actually consistent with his treatment of the different cooking methods. So like sometimes he would cook both sides of the dough to make sure that they both cooked evenly and then put the toppings on. But sometimes he would just cook one side and then be like, but the top is raw. And I'm like, well, yeah, because there's no heat source at the top. So why are you doing it for some and not others? Like, that was irritating from a scientific experiment perspective.
And it was also like, what makes a pizza a pizza? There was one where he threw the dough, I think, on a wood fire and it puffed up, and then he put all the sauce and cheese on top.
Yeah.
And is that really a pizza, or is it a flatbread that you put some tomato sauce on?
Yeah, one time he made a calzone.
Yes, and called it a pizza dumpling. We have a name for that. It's a calzone.
That's what I wrote. I was like, just call it a calzone already. Okay, so guys, hear me out. I know the waffle thing did not work, but...
No. Because who is going to clean that waffle iron? That's what I need to ask.
No. I'm thinking stuffed waffle. You get like all the pizza toppings inside a waffle. So it's like a calzone, but a waffle.
No, I don't want it. I don't want it.
You should contact Amiel and suggest it.
I tell you what I do think is a good idea was the skillet pan to oven. I thought that was a really good idea for, like, if you're cooking it at home, getting the real heat on the bottom on the skillet on the stovetop and then putting it in the actual oven to get the top all puffed up and nice. I thought that I might do that if I ever make pizza at home, which is not likely. Next we have Brad with an It's Alive episode making charred tomato toast, or tomato toast if you're American.
Yeah, this was actually sponsored content that didn't bother me as much because it felt more natural to what was going on, and that there was an actual like field trip to the place. And
I enjoyed the field trip.
I did too.
I enjoyed the field trip because I wasn't expecting it. I think because I missed first time round that it was sponsored. I was like, oh, Brad's just making some tomatoes on toast. Great. And then at the end, obviously, they were like, imagine if we went on a field trip to Michigan. And then they did it because normally the field trip part comes at the top of an episode as opposed to at the end. So I was like, oh, a field trip. Oh, great. This is so interesting how they're growing those tomato plants. And they're like, it's fascinating, and I really enjoyed that bit. So because it was a surprise, I feel like I enjoyed it that much more.
I also enjoyed it and was also surprised because I saw that there was about 10 minutes of the video left, and I thought, what the heck are we going to fill up this time with? And then we were suddenly at the greenhouse, and I was very happy.
Yeah, and then I remembered all the same footage from Brad's Instagram stories.
Exactly.
I didn't remember that. But I do often just skip through Brad's Instagram stories. Sorry, Brad.
Yeah. Well, it was really recent.
Oh, wow.
You don't want to see what music he's listening to, LJ?
I can only see so much kind of like, I don't know, heavy dad rock before I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah. I enjoyed this video because I really love, I mean, to me, the recipe seemed very, very similar in terms of intention as like a bruschetta, which I love a bruschetta. And I really liked how he was using like loads of garlic and like really blistering those tomatoes and like getting all of the oil on the bread before grilling it. I thought it was hilarious that Chris was like, just grill the fucking bread. It's not going to get crispy in your pan. He clearly did not want to grill it, but he went and did it anyway and had a good result because of it. So yeah, to me this seemed like quite a simple recipe, made slightly more chaotic because it's Brad, but like one that I could definitely see myself being like, I can do that at home. That's a nice thing to do.
Yeah, simple recipe, long episode, cause Brad.
Because Brad.
I did like when he went over to the grill and Solo was making something. His like former test kitchen manager started showing when he was like, "Oh, we gotta take care of this flour. That's a disaster." It was like, do you know how many people died in Mills? And you could just tell like Solo's like, yep, just let me do my job.
It reminded me of the sort of thing my granddad would say, like, did you know that they died in the mines? Like, you know what I mean? But he's not wrong. Flour is super flammable, so he's probably good to be safe.
I thought the recipe looked delicious, too. I love tomatoes. Brad said that he thinks less is more with tomatoes, and I totally agree. So, especially when you have fresh, ripe tomatoes. I don't think there is much that needs to be done with them. I would just eat them raw, plain, maybe with a little bit of salt. So I thought that this recipe was good at highlighting the tomato without overpowering it. I think I would definitely make this too.
Yeah, and them being like, and it's February, and we've got good tomatoes.
How is this happening?
Well, and I like that Hansi's like, we did not prompt them. We did not prompt them.
Yeah, that was pretty funny, because it did seem like the method soap conversation a little bit.
But,
So, once again, I think Hansi was a real MVP in this. My favorite graphic that he did, I could not stop laughing, was when Brad was like, numbers, words, it's all the same. And then it was like, numbers, and then a Hamlet quote. And I
that was so good.
So hilarious. And then my second favorite Hansi moment is when he's trying to explain to Brad how editing a video works. And Brad just keeps going in circles. And he's like, but wait, what? We're back from Michigan? Huh?
Trying to cue him back in.
No, that is just the real life of people just explaining and just being like, no, we're good. And they're like, are you sure? And I'm like, yes. Like, stop thinking about it. Just do what I'm saying. Like,
my favorite Hansi moment technically wasn't in this video, but he posted online an edit he did of Brad humming Blondie's Heart of Glass.
Oh my god.
What's that song? And then he's like, nobody knows what it is. And I'm like, lots of people know what that is.
Yeah, absolutely. So everyone, go find that on Hansi's Twitter.
So funny.
So I adore Brad. But when he's like, I don't know why people want to know about medium or high heat or whatever, just look at the flame. And I was like, how about those of us with electric ovens?
Right? Yeah, true. I have an electric stovetop, which I hate. I would much rather have gas, but apartment life. And yeah, I do need to know, Brad. I need to know.
That's usually how recipes work, Brad.
So funny. I mean, It's Alive is just him making up recipes from his brain, so like live on the fly. So you can't expect him to get down to nitty gritty, like, details or instructions.
Okay, so this is going to be like a through line through some of the other videos. What is going on with Dan?
Oh, where everybody hates Dan, or what?
Well, I think he was just talking with them about the Gourmet Makes video. I don't know what the point of contention was.
Yeah. He was talking about that because he's wearing the same shirt. So that was that same day.
Because it seemed like, because Chris was in the background going like, I did not say that to him. And then it seemed like Dan came over and started telling them what's wrong with It's Alive. And then they were like, oh, he gave us so many compliments. And I was just like, oh boy, what's going on here?
He's a producer. Nobody likes producers. The end. No. Just facts, man.
Yeah, I guess we can talk about this later, but yeah, it seems like the silly April Fool's videos maybe weren't as silly as everyone wanted them to be.
Yeah.
Okay, so next we have our first proper Test Kitchen Talks at home video, and they're making coffee.
So many kinds of coffee making. I had no idea.
They didn't have my preferred method on there, though, which is just instant coffee.
Ugh. LJ.
To be fair, it's a premium brand of instant coffee, but I was kind of a bit like, I can't remember who said it. Claire, I think, was saying it. Like, I can appreciate a fancy coffee all day if it's like made for me or if I have my faculties about me to make it, but I cannot do that first thing in the morning. Like, I cannot conduct a science experiment to get a drink of coffee to wake up first thing in the morning. I have to just have the quickest version. And I've been drinking like this particular brand of instant coffee since I can remember. And it's fine. I like it. It wakes me up. And then I can maybe think about doing something more extreme. But yeah, there were a lot of steps and waiting. And I can't do that first thing in the morning.
I feel like this episode was just like, well, Chris and Delaney love making coffee and they Instagram about it all the time. So let's do that. That we can do at home.
Yeah.
I liked seeing how many different people, like, everybody has very intensive feelings about coffee, but I think my favorite were the people who were like, well, coffee isn't for me, so here's my alternative.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, especially, I love coffee, but coffee does not love me. So it was fun to see, you know, like Priya doing chai and Gabby doing the mate and Sola with her white Russian and, you know, all of those things where it's like regular old coffee is not going to work for everybody. So here are some alternatives too.
I'd never heard of mate before, so I was really interested in that, what Gabby was drinking. It looked amazing.
Can I admit something to you guys? I don't think I've ever drinking a cup of coffee.
What?
Ever.
Wow.
I don't know what to do with that information. I thought everyone had had coffee.
You gotta at least try it. You might
I've
love
had
it.
coffee flavored things. I'm just
Not the same.
I know. I'm such a sweet tooth, and I mean, like, I prefer just having tea anyway.
I mean, I started drinking coffee when I was quite young, and I had like 6 spoonfuls of sugar in it. So that can make it pretty sweet. You can go sweet and then bring it down.
It's true.
I don't know. It just seems like another expense.
I used to drink coffee with more milk than coffee and a ton of sugar, and now I drink it black, so I don't know.
I don't have sugar in mine. I do have milk. Do you know what this video did make me think, though? I miss half and half. We don't have that in the UK, and I love it. It's one of the things that I miss the most from the US.
Wait, how is there not half and half?
We don't do it. We just do milk or cream. That's all you can have.
Well, default to cream then.
I have in the past had cream in coffee instead to try and recreate it, but there comes a point where you're like, I'm drinking a lot of cream in a day.
I especially liked Chris's and Delaney's, and I guess technically Christina and Rick's segment about the pour over. Like you were saying, Justine, they just gave Delaney and Chris a platform to talk about pour over coffee.
Which they were already doing on the internet.
Yes. I feel like they were humoring them, and they were like, okay, guys, this is your one chance to get it out of your system. Now, don't do any more coffee stuff on the official channels. But it was pretty funny to see how aligned they were sometimes, and then how much they diverged, because Delaney and Chris even had the same brand of coffee. They had the same V60 pour over cone thing. They both had burr grinders. And then Delaney brings out his shitty novelty mug with something stupid written on it.
Oh my God, the mug controversy.
Why is the controversy about the mug? Wouldn't it be about the coffee? I don't know. I thought that was hilarious.
I wonder whether he just said that because he wasn't in his own kitchen and he was like, well, I can't bring a mug. That would be just like, that's not necessary for me to make coffee in my parents' house. So I'm just going to style it out and say that I prefer having a shitty mug because that's all my parents have. I wondered whether that was it.
Maybe. Pour over is definitely my favorite type of coffee to order, but it is very fussy to make, so I've never actually tried to make it myself, and you need a lot of equipment and whatnot. So I guess I'm like Andy, just have the coffee machine, just get it going in the morning.
I had a coffee machine. It's actually not as common to have a coffee machine like the one that Andy was talking through, like a drip coffee machine in the UK for some reason. I don't know why. We have kettles are very common, like electric kettles, because of tea. Everyone drinks a lot of tea here. But more popular in recent years has been the kind of full-on coffee where you have to grind beans and then put it in, or like the ones you can get with the pod, which I don't like because that's not great for the environment.
Oh yeah, the K-cups.
Yeah.
Keurig, yeah.
That's my standard.
Yeah. But yeah, like Russ really loves coffee. I think if he could get a whole pour over setup, he would, but I've refused. We don't have the space for it. Like, where am I keeping all this coffee equipment? But we do have an AeroPress, which is pretty good. And we do have a coffee machine that you put ground coffee in and like it pours
Tap
through.
A French press?
Yeah, I don't know the words. I don't know the fancy words. It's just a machine that makes coffee. It looked like Brad's machine, actually, the one that he was using.
Oh, an espresso machine.
Yeah, maybe that's what that is. I don't know. You press a button and coffee comes out.
I love that Brad made up his own coffee that he called Cafe Ooh La La.
Of course, Brad invented his own coffee.
They're like, landscape.
Just him going handheld really adds to the dynamic shots, you know? Like, the cinematography in these
tight,
suck.
tied up picture of the brown sugar.
I did pick up one tip, apart from Brad's tip to put sugar on your phone. That's great, sure. But the other tip that I picked up was about preheating your cup. I had no idea if you were making a fancy coffee that's a good thing to do. So I will be doing that in future.
That's the tip I took away as well, too, because I really hate drinking my coffee once it's gone cold. And I think that heating the mug would be a big game changer.
Yes.
Did anybody else wonder, though, every time somebody like preheated a mug by like putting hot water in it and then just pouring the water out, I kept thinking like that's wasting a lot of water.
Pour it on your plants.
Once it's cool, obviously.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. I feel like I waste. It depends what you call a waste of water. Like it was one mugful. Like I don't know. Like you probably use way more than that in like a second of a shower. You know.
Maybe this is showing the way I was raised. Like,
or quarantine times. Waste nothing.
Yeah. So now we're heading into April Fool's content with pastry chefs attempt to make gourmet Andes mints.
The fans asked for this. BA gave it to us. I think it's hilarious that they're continuing with the pastry chef's naming convention because Claire isn't a pastry chef and obviously neither is Brad.
Did you read the description though?
Hilarious.
It is hilarious.
I think that everyone needs to read the Gourmet Makes descriptions because they're always funny and always overlooked.
I'm going to have a look. Bradley and Chris Morocco are back for another episode of Gourmet Makes. This time, these two guys who have always hosted and will always host Gourmet Makes are attempting to make a gourmet version of Andy's creme de menthe and America's favourite after-dinner mint. Strangely, one of our editors had the idea that Claire Saffitz has always been the host of Gourmet Makes, so they couldn't point to a single episode that Claire had hosted. We're all very worried about that editor because, as we all know, Chris and Brad are Gourmet Makes.
Oh,
so
boy.
Funny. I didn't notice that.
They're often funny. I meant to say that earlier on the podcast, actually. You should definitely be reading those descriptions. I think it was the peanut M&Ms where they had a fake historical breakdown of people discovering peanut M&Ms like they were archaeologists. It was hilarious.
This is a treasure trove.
Not 100% sure that was the episode, but it was one of them.
When do we get to talk about the controversies?
Let's just do it because... Yeah.
Well, well, I'd say most of the people who watched this video felt a little uncomfortable at the end when Claire came in. We got to see classic casual sexism in the workplace with Brad and Chris not letting Claire talk and explain herself, and the number of times she had to say, "Can I finish? Can I speak?"
I feel like if it had just been like one time and they would have been like, oh, sorry, speak, then it would have been okay. But the fact that it just went on for about 5 minutes and they were like, oh, yeah, shit, Claire's trying to say something. It was like, guys, come on. Way too like familiar to anyone who's been a woman. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like that situation is like, I've experienced that so much in my life. But yeah, it was interesting that it was like captured on camera for everyone to see.
I don't think they should have necessarily sanitized this video or tried to cover it up. But at the same time, it's also like, this was just very not enjoyable to watch. And it just made me think, why did they keep this in here? Was it really so not obvious to the people creating the video how bad it was? And I guess the answer is yes, actually, it wasn't obvious to the people putting out the video that this is not a good thing. And that's a little bit troubling. And I feel like at the end of the video, just no one came out looking very good after that exchange.
No.
So not fun to watch, definitely not fun to experience in real life, which I think a lot of us can attest to.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that speaks to the diversity of the editing team, because as far as I know, I've only ever seen men on the production team. I could be wrong.
I thought that Gourmet Makes was edited by a woman, but it could have been reverse engineering, or they could be the same. But there is a female editor on staff, as I know of via Instagram.
I guess what I'm saying is I'm not surprised that a male-heavy staff on that team didn't notice that this would be a problem.
Yeah, well, that's just the film
that's not
industry.
surprising. That's not surprising, you know?
Yeah.
But it's like, that just to me, it's just like, that's why we need more women. Like, hire more women.
Yeah.
Yep, representation matters. Yeah, I wondered if whoever was editing or producing thought the funny part of it was Claire, like, rolling her eyes at the camera and all of that, like, very The Office style of, like, oh, this is what I'm dealing with. But I don't know that they were understanding, like, this is something all of us have dealt with. Like you said, Meg, if you are female, like, if you're a woman, you've dealt with this in the workplace or in your personal life or, you know, all over. And as much as I was like, oh, yep, Claire, I feel ya, it's not comedy. It's just depressing.
Yeah.
It's a real shame, too, because I think that exact same scenario could have been super funny, because it is kind of funny to think about how much Chris and Brad were patting themselves on the back for doing the bare minimum. And like people on the internet were saying, two guys barely recreate something that one woman does by herself all the time. So there's definitely comedic potential there. It's just too bad it didn't turn out that way. Yeah. But fortunately, the rest of the episode was pretty entertaining.
It was really entertaining. And that's why I guess it was such a shame that the end left it on a more of a sour note. But yeah.
Yeah.
I did wonder if Hunzi had been allowed to edit this, if there would have been a different tone.
I think that Hunzi wouldn't have forced the situation to begin with. It seems like Dan is all about forcing Claire to do things that make her uncomfortable, whereas Hunzi just rolls with the punches.
Oh, yeah, Dan. We see that from Claire's when we get to It's Alive. She's obviously having the time of her life.
Oh my God. Like, blink twice if you're being held against your will, Claire.
I know. I mean, I feel like we should spend a bit of time talking about the rest of the video rather than just the end, because I didn't know about Andy's mints. We don't have them in the UK. Brad clearly barely knows where the Andys are, so I don't feel too bad about that. But
I just think of them as like just like one of those hotel mint chocolates, and that's really it.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, they always give you Andy's mints at the Olive Gardens I've been to. This is always what I associate Andy's mints with.
I've never been to
you
an
too,
Olive
Amanda?
Garden.
Yeah, I think of it as an after dinner mint because it's always what they serve at Olive Garden.
We have a similar concept, like we do after dinner mints in the UK. I just guess not that brand, but I get the idea. Like, it's fine. What I thought was interesting was they would never have got anywhere near as far as they did with this if it hadn't been for Solar. Like, Solar was their like.
So in Chris's defense, I think that Chris successfully tempered all of his batches.
Right.
It was really only when Brad was, quote, helping or doing his own batch that the temper did not take.
But I do think they needed Solar, like, because Chris even said at the end, like, maintaining that temperature whilst you're trying to assemble
that was
everything.
indispensable.
They needed
for sure.
someone else to help them with that. And that's why I think
and
Claire
that
was
was her idea in the first place, so that was very smart.
Yeah, but I do think I'm for the campaign of get Claire a co-host on Gourmet Makes. Like, I think she needs one. It's so unfair that they make her do it on her own and have, like, a nervous breakdown every episode.
Get Sola as her co-host, or let Rhoda be her co-host or something.
I'd love that.
Until they try to help and she says, no, let me do it.
Well, you know, one of the lighter notes, I guess it wasn't actually light, but before all of the controversy at the end, I was enjoying how weirdly murdery this episode was, when it starts with, like, Brad saying, like, yep, put Claire in the basement. And Chris is like, you can't say that. Like, that's creepy. And then when I think it was Gabby came over and was like, what's Andy's mints? What did you do to Andy? And Brad's like, oh, we chopped him up and we put him in the mints. Like, I don't know.
Dissected him, sold his organs.
Yes. All of that cracked me up.
That was funny. Next, we have our second April Fool's video, which was a back-to-back chef episode with Molly instead of Carla, and she has Binging with Babish on as her guest. And I have to say, I am shocked. I had no idea that his name wasn't Babish. It's Andrew.
I didn't know that either.
What? Cricketh. Where does Babish come from?
My brother told me once because he watches Binging with Babish, but
I watch Binging with Babish and I've never noticed it before.
I really, really liked this episode. I thought that Babish and Molly got on like a house on fire. I thought that Molly did much better at the instruction than I thought. Obviously, she's a very capable chef, but as we were saying earlier, sometimes she goes a little overboard with the abbreviations. Sometimes she's a little cutesy. And I think especially working with another food personality, I think she would be tempted to not overly explain. Mm-hmm. So I do think there were a few moments where maybe Babish got a little bit lost. But on the other hand, I think that Babish just in general was a little bit more flustered and chaotic than I expected him to be. And I think that Molly's instruction was maybe a little too fast sometimes. Maybe she didn't quite anticipate what would happen next, but I thought she did really well.
Yeah. I really thought it was cute that they did the Jean-Georges ostrich egg. I mean, like, I thought that was a good throwback. But until the very end where she's just like, I fucking can't eat this because I ate so many ostrich eggs.
That was the funniest bit at the end. They were both like, this is disgusting.
Yeah. And Babish said he didn't like salmon roe either. Yes. So it was like doubly not good for him.
Yeah.
I felt like I did not enjoy Molly doing this.
Ooh.
I felt like she wasn't. Yeah, for me, it didn't seem like she was very good at explaining things or being patient. She kept kind of like seemed like she was getting annoyed that he was behind her. I maybe it's just that I like the way that Carla tends to be like a little calmer and like talk people through it. And to me, it felt a little bit like Molly was just like, well, I'm just doing this thing. And like, there were parts that I found enjoyable, but I guess when the whole concept of back to back of like trying to help somebody through this, it just seemed like she kind of missed that. I don't know, that part of it.
I think Molly does have a competitiveness that is just so much a part of her that you can never have Molly without the competitiveness. I honestly do think that half of this video was her just wanting to have yet another whisking competition.
Oh my God.
Oh, God.
There was so much whisking going on. The double whisk.
Yeah. At one point she was whisking both eggs. Babish couldn't work out that he needed to wash his bowl. Because he used the wrong one. Oh, so funny. I also enjoyed that at the end, Babish like handed his egg over being like, be careful, it's got a nasty crack in the back. And I was like, no.
There was a lot of innuendo in this video. How tiny is your whisk?
Yeah.
Did she hide his big whisk? Because she had 2 large whisks.
I think she did a little extra April Fool's prank.
I think production did, perhaps, because isn't his whole thing that he uses a tiny whisk all the time?
He loves a tiny whisk. Yeah.
Yeah, she did conveniently know exactly where the big one was.
She was like, I just happen to know where the whisks are. So sure.
I think maybe that's part of what turned me off a little bit from this too. I notoriously hate April Fool's Day and just the idea of like people just trying to trick each other on purpose, and I don't know. It's not my thing. It's my least favorite quote unquote holiday. And when she just kept like hiding things from him and like the extra added layer of trying to trick him just turned me off a lot.
Yeah. Nobody hide Amanda's whisks on April Fool's Day. Whiskey business.
I'll whisk you in the face.
And finally, we have It's Alive with new host Claire Saffitz making sourdough crepes. So delightful.
Oh my God. Just at first I was like 35 minutes. I thought they didn't usually go over half an hour these days, but then watching it I was just like, oh, I see what's happening.
This was a really fun episode. I think it just really proves that Hunzi is the secret sauce. Although I do think that the Hunzi-Brad dynamic is obviously what really, really makes It's Alive what it is. You need that Brad personality to go with the Hunzi personality.
Brad gives endless material.
Yeah, Brad, you can't have It's Alive without Brad. But that being said, this was really enjoyable. It was nice to see Claire kind of let loose.
Yeah. The only thing I was sad about in this episode is that Claire finally someone, and Claire was the lucky person, managed to get power of attorney over the fermentation station, and she didn't get rid of that fucking yolk bag. She looked at it, she thought about it, but she was like, no, Brad is going to be really mad at me. And I was like, I don't care, Claire. I don't care. Get rid of it. It's going to kill people.
When she left it there, I thought, well, no one's at the office now. How much longer is that thing going to live on the wall?
Oh my God, it's disgusting. Do it for us, Claire. Save us, if not yourself.
But then the other side of me really wants to see what happens with those egg yolks.
No, they are disgusting.
No. I thought it was really funny that Claire started the episode with saying, no offense to Brad, and Brad started the Gourmet Makes episode with no offense to Claire. So they both get each other's series and are like, no offense, but...
I loved how much she clearly enjoyed this show, because she's allowed to like say what she wants when she wants to say it and do what she wants. Like, she's got so much more freedom than she has on Gourmet Makes, which I think is, I guess telling about how they shoot Gourmet Makes. But also, I'm just
She's
like, I want to see more.
Nobody's
of Claire.
Yelling at me, and I'm like, oh God.
I want to see more of her on this show because she's just so happy.
Nobody's throwing things at me. It's wonderful.
It's so much more humane. Like, I don't want to see a caged animal. I want to see someone roaming free.
She did keep saying how easy it was, It's Alive, and I thought, how easily you forget the 3-part Sour Donuts episode.
Yeah.
It's a disaster, sure. Claire. Yeah, this is part of why I wanted to bring up the Dan stuff earlier, because I very much felt like if you give Claire a different producer, maybe she won't hate Gourmet Makes so much.
I mean, it's hard because it's the formula that everyone watches for, right? People want something that they expect and what they know. So it's hard. It's like, here's an incredibly popular YouTube series and here's what the audience expects. And if you deviate from it, then are you going to have a hit on your hands anymore? Who knows?
Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe they just need to give her a baby.
That baby was so fucking cute. So cute.
That was a very cute baby.
And I also loved the baby was cute, but also Claire was just so adorable with the baby. Like, that's what, like, she just was so sweet. I loved it.
She definitely seems like, and this is just my impression from this video, that she's a person who loves babies but doesn't know anything about them. When she was trying to get the baby to say, it's alive, I'm like, Claire, that baby is way too young to be talking. What are you doing?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, saying bye-bye is one thing, but it's alive. I'm like, there's a lot of hard consonants in that.
Loved the sourdough heist and the dramatic reenactment.
Oh, that was amazing. I loved that. Brad ghosted Claire, so she MacGyvered a break-in to Brad's locked freezer. So funny. And then it was just hilarious, that freeze frame when Brad asks her about it, and she's like, whoop.
Oh, so I believe that was an anime deep cut.
Was it? Interesting.
Yep. All you JoJo Bizarre Adventure fans out there.
There you go. I also really laughed at Brad's expense report drama. He's like, why do they want to know what I'm spending money on? And I'm like, because you're asking them to pay you back.
Because that's their job and that's how expense reports work.
He's like, but it's none of their business. And I was like, oh God, Brad.
Why does it matter who I'm meeting with? I'm like, because you said it was a business meeting.
Funny. It made me laugh so much. Also, shout out to Suzette, Gabby's Pilates teacher. This episode is dedicated to Suzette, wherever she is.
Brad joked that Gabby was going to get a tattoo that said Dulce de Leche for life, and may we propose that to Bon Appétit as their next tattoo?
Yes. I actually really enjoyed Gabby thinking of using Dulce de Leche on a crepe, because I've got a big jar of Dulce de Leche left over from doing those shortbread cookies in the Basically Baking challenge, and I was like, yes, I can use it with crepes, of course. Like, I've always got flour and butter and eggs and stuff. I can do that. So it's given me great inspiration. Thanks, Gabby.
Yeah, that'd be delicious. Oh, and speaking of getting Claire a co-host, they can't tease us with Going Places Phase 2 with Sola and Claire and not deliver.
Yeah.
We have to see this.
Sola and Claire to Tonka. They need to go to Tonka.
Please.
They need to replenish their vanilla bean stocks. It's very important.
That vanilla bean was tragic. That was like $100 worth of vanilla beans.
Yeah, like
least.
imagine the expense report. Okay, so now that we've gone through all of the videos that were on our agenda for this episode, let's pick and go round and talk about what our favourite video was from this bunch. And you have to pick what dish you would make. So who wants to go first?
I can go. It's really easy. I think my favorite video was the Claire It's Alive. It was just so funny and refreshing, and I just loved seeing Claire be happy.
We just wanted to be happy.
Just wanted to be happy. The food that I would make would be the charred tomato toast.
I'll go next because I picked those exact same two. I loved It's Alive with Claire. I loved it so much that I watched it again immediately, even though I only watched all the rest of the videos only once. It was just really happy and nice to watch. And I love tomatoes. What's not to love about the tomato toast?
Mm-hmm.
I can go next. So my favorite, though I really, really did love the Crêpes Suzette with Claire. My favorite was the Bon Appetit Test Kitchen is Cooking at Home episode.
Aww.
That was nice too.
Mm-hmm.
It just made me feel so like happy and warm inside. So that's my favorite. And then my thing that I would make is from the Test Kitchen Talks is Priya's chai recipe.
Ooh, yeah, that's a good
yeah.
one. That's a good choice. I'm going with Meg and Justine. My favourite is definitely the It's Alive with Claire. More of that, please. Keep having her on. I definitely need to see her and Sola make a Going Places episode as well. But my... I wish I would actually make the charred tomato toast as well, but I'm actually going to choose the roast chicken dish because
We all knew
I
it.
think it looks delicious, and I'm going to try and source me some gochujang so I can put that into practice.
You send your tofu to Justine. I'll send my gochujang to you.
What can Amanda send to you, Meg?
I have a bunch of Chef Boyardee and Vienna sausages, if you need any.
I've been craving hot dogs. I'll take those Vienna sausages.
Great.
All right, sweet.
Good. Everyone's got something. All that we have left to do in this episode is give some shout outs to all you lovely people who've been listening and interacting with us on the interwebs. So thank you to Margaret and Mrs. Casper. They have got in contact and said that they miss our weekly episodes because, as we mentioned last time we did a recap episode, we're not so much with the side dishes in the quarantine situation. Like, we can't get hold of the ingredients. It's going to be a whole mess. Plus,
I don't
there's a
know
lot of
how
stress.
people on the internet are doing it. Like, people are
I don't
still
know.
doing the BA stuff on Instagram, and I'm like posting the pictures in our feed, on our story feed, and I'm just like, how? How?
I know. It's
Yeah.
hard.
Last time I went to the store, because I'm trying to only go to the grocery store every like week and a half or 2 weeks, the whole bulk bin section had been cleared out, and they had signs saying like, until COVID-19 clears up, this for health issues, this is not going to be here anymore.
Wow. That's a lot. Yeah, I feel like I've been quite lucky. I've managed to keep up with basically baking so far, but we'll just have to see how it keeps going. But yeah, I think side dish episodes are a bit difficult to do these days, and plus, you know, it's added pressure and stress, so we're just trying to be kind to ourselves. We got a lot going on, so we're really sorry that we're not weekly at the moment, but we hope that these recap episodes are still good and you still love us.
Yeah. And speaking of friends of the podcast, Margaret and Mrs. Casper, they helped me out with the next edition of Will It Freeze? So Margaret was lamenting that she had 2 gallons of milk and wasn't sure if she'd be able to use it all before it spoiled. And Mrs. Casper had just been looking up whether you could freeze milk. She says you definitely can, but it will expand. So you usually have to put it in a different container than the container it came in. And when you thaw it, it's usually best for baking or cooking, not for drinking directly or putting in your cereal or coffee. So thank you to Margaret and Mrs. Casper for this segment of Will It Freeze?
Yeah. Or just buy shelf-stable plant milks.
Yeah, that lasts forever.
Or be lactose intolerant, because then you don't have the problem.
Plant-based milk, like just
exactly.
They can just sit on your shelves for as long as this apocalypse lasts.
Excellent. So Heidi from Vibrant Visionaries and Jaslyn from Up in 10 Club have been listening to us and let us know, which is wonderful. We always love it when you reach out and say that you're appreciating what we're putting out there. On Instagram, Lemon's Test Kitchen has been chatting with us about what BA recipes they've been cooking up. And currently, they are working their way through Epicurious's Cooking Through It quarantine meal plan, which sounds exciting and very organised. And Dame Judy Brunch really wants Brad's tomato toast, and Margaret wants Amiel's calzone. Why you'd want a pizza dumpling, I don't know, Margaret, but you do you. Okay.
Margaret, I feel you. I agree.
So thank you, everyone who got in touch with us on social media. We love it when you share what you think about us, about BA, about everything. Keep doing it. And if you have a little time and you haven't already done it, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. We love to hear from you, and we also read them out when we get them. So you'll be able to hear us talk about you in our lovely voices on our lovely podcast, if you do so. So yeah, thanks for joining us this week, and we'll see you next time for more recaps.
Yay! More home videos.
Thanks for listening to Bon Appétit, a Bon Appétit fan cast.
We'd love to hear from you, so find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest at pod_appetit.
And on Facebook at Pod Appétit Podcast.
You can also email us at podappetitpodcast@gmail.com and find all of our episodes on our website, podappetitpodcast.com.
Until next time, the test kitchen is closed.
I'm Amy with a Y.
And I'm Amy with an I.
And we're the hosts of Secular Soup, where each week we offer up a bowl of real talk about atheism, feminism, politics, parenting, and whatever else we want to talk about because it's our podcast.
Just listen to what these random dudes are saying about our show.
This is what would happen if Daria and Jane grew up and started a podcast.
So if you like extremely foul-mouthed ladies with opinions, this is the podcast for you.
Grab a bowl and taste the magic. Slurp even this.